IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to the IVM Podcast Network. Wow, we're dealing with some stuff, aren't we? The COVID-19 scare we're facing in India and the world has, it's really changed our lives, hasn't it? But it's also seriously impacted our ability to create podcasts and to get them out to you on schedule. For the next few weeks, I'd like to ask for your patience if episodes are delayed or postponed. We're also going to be doing many of the recordings remotely, like this one, for example, right? And sound quality is going to be a little uneven while we're facing this time, right? If you want to listen to discussions about COVID, we have had conversations on Cider Says, the Pragati Podcast, Thale Arate, All Things Policy, The Habit Coach, and other shows as well, right? So, please do continue to stay tuned, and we will be talking about this stuff, and we'll be talking about life in general. Also want to thank our sponsors this week, HDFC Life and Paytm Money. So let's get on with this, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Hey, welcome to the Geek Fruit podcast. That's not a bad Willem scream.
Thank you. I tried.
There's a reason we're goofing around in this particular way. We goof around all the time anyway.
Yes.
But we're very specifically making weird noises because that's what this episode is about.
It's about weird noises, or as they say in the professional Hollywood industry, sound effects. Nowhere else.
Nowhere else.
Sound effects.
SFX?
SFX.
Is it SFX?
It is SFX.
SFX and VFX, huh?
Well, VFX obviously slightly more recent.
Yeah.
But SFX has been...
But sound effects. Sound editing, as the awards call them.
Sound editing, yes, because they don't want to say SFX award.
Yeah.
Because that's very...
There's potential to misspell it.
Definitely. In fact, that's what people used to say about The Lion King. You remember? There's that moment where
something bursts into... Yeah.
Simba basically sees his father and then he goes away and then he passes out. And when the little leaves and everything go, it actually forms the letters SFX, but everybody thought it was SEX.
I thought it was SEX and Disney came up with the excuse that it was actually SFX.
But why would they do that?
Just to mess around, one animator having a laugh.
You having a laugh?
Yeah. Why would you put in SFX?
That's also in a VFX.
in an animated movie.
Actually, that's true. Maybe you're...
Yeah.
Actually,
why would an animator go like, I would really want to credit the sound people?
Maybe there was... We don't know.
People like to talk about sex stages.
That's true.
Yeah.
And, that movie has some of it. Because at the end they have a kid.
That's how Simba was born, dude.
Jesus. All right. So, coming back to SFX.
Sound effects.
Yes.
So, this is part of a series we've done a couple of times before.
Yes.
Called OST.
We're not sure of that title, but we'll go with it.
We'll go with it.
What are the previous episodes we have done?
So, we have spoken about movie scores.
That's one of my favorites.
It's great.
We should do an update on that. There have been some other good scores that have happened.
There have been some good scores.
Yes.
But, so we did movie scores, then we did movie soundtrack albums.
Yes.
And I distinctly remember us saying, what do we do next? Should we just do like sound effects? And that must have been like a year ago.
And then we found nothing else to talk about. and then we're here. But I think sound effects is definitely worth...
It's been a year since then, huh? Wait, let me bring us from that episode to this episode. Whoosh.
Nice. Good one. Quick.
Yeah.
Nice cut off.
Yeah. It's a sharp one. It's a quick transition.
It's a
whip pan.
It's a whip pan. You know what's really interesting is that I think SFX has definitely influenced cinema more than we think about. I mean, it's taken so long for us to come up with this idea for this episode, but I'm surprised that whenever we come up with a unique new idea or a topic for our episodes, we're like, oh wow, we found one. But this one I feel like has been languishing for some time now.
It has languished.
Yes.
Because sound is really important, right? Like we can think distinctly about sound effects that have just really been... Well, let me tell you a story about film school.
Tell us.
Like the very first day, one of our profs walks in and goes like, how does one define cinema?
Oh, God. According to the Webster's Dictionary?
Yeah. So then like a bunch of kids just jump in with like, so actually it's like when photographic images are played at the rate of 24 seconds or higher per second.
Seconds?
24 frames or higher per second. Like basically trying to do the visual definition stuff. He's like, no. Then someone else is like, it's the storytelling through a visual medium created by a team of collaborators. He's like, no. And then like one kid says, it's the use of visuals and sound. He goes like, yes, that's the one.
So when you tried for the third time...
Oh, I didn't answer at all. I didn't give a shit. But yeah, basically it was like sound. Everyone forgets sound. But movies are visuals and sound.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
He's very dramatic.
And he's actually a very good prof. I was just, he was very dramatic.
As a film professor ought to be.
Yeah, he was an old school, like a super old school Bollywood guy.
Love it.
He would like perform monologues halfway through class and stuff. It was great.
Killer. That's great. Oh, man. Well, yeah, I think it's important to note, well, particularly that we're doing a podcast in an audio medium. Yes, if you don't acknowledge the, just dialogue and ADR and diegetic sound and sound effects, I think that's would be remiss to not mention all of these
sound
things.
Effects are key.
Yes.
Diegetic and non-diegetic.
Absolutely.
So diegetic is when the sound effect is motivated by something happening on screen.
Yes.
Like you see someone punch someone and there's a as opposed to non-diegetic
excellent.
sound where a song starts playing and it's
doesn't
clearly
go down
not being listened to in the scene. It's the soundtrack.
Yes. So I think it's important to note that there are so many things in SFX that have become staples of Hollywood and cinema in general, that it's passed on to almost every industry, and there have been some iconic moments in sound that are unforgettable. One thing that Mali talks about quite often, or Abhimanyu actually, where he used to shut his ears when the THX logo credit used to open, and it's just that amazing
Isn't
kind
it the
of
sound that supposedly runs through every single bit of the spectrum?
this is
every
what they
single
say,
frequency
but
or
I
something
think
like that.
they obviously don't start
Maybe
it from.
it is.
Maybe they do, but there's not enough time before to start from the lowest frequency, which are inaudible to our human ears. But yeah, apparently it's, it does. I mean, it sounds like it does. And I think it's a multiple kind of, what do you call it? It's a multiple waveforms doing something. It's like very Dunkirky because it kind of makes you uneasy and stuff. But I think that was
That's
showcasing
another
the
great
ability
sound
of.
effect. Though, is that technically part of the soundtrack?
I think that was just a technique that Zimmer did, right? Like, which was the whole cyclical kind of upward climbing,
the constantly rising tone.
Yeah, and without a drop. Basically, Skrillex sat through the whole movie and he was like, "What am I watching?
What is happening?
When is the drop?
Why am I feeling like this?"
Yeah. So I think, man, SFX, there have been some iconic moments in cinema that we all remember, and we don't really talk about that much. But this episode, in 30 minutes flat, we are gonna go through all the most important sound effects.
Every single one?
The most important ones.
All right.
And what they mean to us, and maybe about how they originated.
Well, sound effects in general originated because of a dude called Jack Foley.
And that's why we call it Foley.
I just want to bring up the fact that his name is Jack Foley. It's so amazing. Great name.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, how perfect. That
Who would have thought? Well, basically, any kind of recreated sound effect is called Foley sound.
Yes.
And was invented by a man named Jack Foley, who came up with all these techniques of like when people would climb upstairs, he'd jump up and down on like a wooden board.
Yeah, I think everyone has seen those little clips of coconut shells being used on a hardwood
for
horses, like
used as a joke in the Monty Python movie.
Yeah, absolutely, yes, exactly. So everyone knows all these kind of very famous techniques, but I think the things that really need to be acknowledged, I think music and the advent of synthesizers in music and just the creation of that and circuitry and stuff like that has played such a huge role in sound effects. That's one important thing to note. And the second thing is Skywalker sound and basically George Lucas, who cannot not be mentioned when it comes to the evolution of digital cinema and just the evolution of cinema itself and VFX and ILM and all of the great things that he's contributed. But yeah, I think those. I think
he also made a movie that has contributed to cinema.
Yeah, American Graffiti.
Yes.
So I think it's important to note that these few key things. I mean, particularly Ben Burt. Let's talk about Ben Burt. I think it's important to talk about Ben Burt because
Tell
this
us about
guy.
Ben Burt.
Well, Ben Burt, popularly known as. Actually, does anybody know him popularly as something?
Well, he's a sound effects guy. So
not just any sound effects guy.
A sound designer.
A sound designer who obviously made all the iconic sounds from Star Wars, which a lot of people credit for many iconic sounds, including the Wilhelm scream, which we're going to talk about in a bit.
Did the Wilhelm scream originate in Star Wars?
No, it didn't, but it was popularized by it.
Yeah.
But Ben Burt, in the year that Star Wars released, and all these amazing effects, whether it was DVs like breathing or or R2D2 and C3PO and all the technology that they had to kind of create sounds from scratch for, at the end of that year, or when it went for the Oscars, the one good year for Star Wars at the Oscars. He won an honorary Oscar for sound design,
and because
sound for people were just like, this guy is his own category, man.
Yeah.
Like, he just give him a fucking
We
Oscar.
don't know how to do this one. I guess you need an Oscar. Here's one. We'll figure out what to call it later.
Yeah. And
And then
deservedly
they came
so.
up with sound editing later.
I think it's awesome that they did that because, I mean, so many generations onwards, he's been, so influential. But, like, apart from that, he's still killing it.
Yeah.
He's still doing Star Wars. He's still doing, I mean, a lot of people don't know, but he's the voice of Wall-E from Pixar and, and Eve and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's fantastic. So, important to note, Ben Burt, cool
Legend.
guy. Legend of sound.
All right, let's take a break. And then we'll talk about specific iconic sounds. All of them, apparently.
Yes.
India's a massive subcontinent home to truly stunning diversity. Behind the veils of smoke that obscure our thriving cities, our history is still alive, glimmering like sequins, waiting to be discovered. And if you, like me, are straining to hear the echoes of our past, this podcast is for you. I'm Anirudh Kanisetti, a history and geopolitics researcher, and I host Echoes of India, a history podcast about India, by Indians, and for Indians. In Echoes, we journey through the complex histories of South Asia and what they can teach us about our globalized world. Tune in every Wednesday on ivmpodcast.com or your favorite podcast app.
That's
Wow. Where do you play that clip from?
Tejas, believe it or not, I made that sound.
I believe it. Dinka, what is your favorite
I'm
sound
not
effect?
sure what I was going for there, by the way. I think I started it. I wanted to do a spaceship landing, but I ended up in the lightsaber territory.
Oh, I definitely thought it was like a new sound that you were going
like
for.
a completely
Yeah, I thought
new
you were
sound effect?
going fresh.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's say that. I was going fresh.
Okay, tell me what.
Now all I need is someone to make a movie around that sound. So if anyone listening has an idea for what that sound could be.
You know what it sounded like? A mixture between like somebody like being teleported and also like something hovering over the ground.
Oh, interesting. So someone hovering while being teleported.
Great. You did it.
A lot
That
of great
iconic.
sounds are mixtures of different sounds, though.
Yes, let's actually talk
But
about
you asked
some of
me
those.
about my favorite
Yeah,
sound.
which
of
is
all
your
time.
favorite?
I don't know, man. There's so many good ones. I think possibly, I did want to start with
Yes.
the Godzilla roar.
Classic.
Iconic.
Wait, Godzilla roar, or do you want to talk about the T-Rex
roar?
Yeah,
I want to
because-
talk about the T-Rex roar specifically,
Yes.
but I want to talk about two iterations of Godzilla.
Let's
alright?
go.
So first of all, the original Godzilla roar from the movies back in the day,
33.
the 33, the Toho movie classics,
Yes.
and the Godzilla, the 90s movie with Matthew Broderick.
Amazing.
All great because of the roars. That roar has evolved over time. If
It
you listen to
has.
the Toho Studio ones, it's just like boxy, kind of like thing.
Obviously because of the technology,
Yes,
but yeah, but just the
technology,
idea has evolved.
And the idea back then was also they took different animal sounds and turned it into a roar, but very distinct from a dinosaur roar or like a dragon roar, I would say. It's more focused. The 90s movie, it's just like this huge sound.
Actually, you know what I felt the difference was? In the original, it's very like low to like low, which is like
Yes.
and the move.
There's only like it's like they put a high pass on it,
yeah,
and it's only the lower
it's
frequencies.
very low, and that would make sense biologically. I want to say maybe
A low pass on it. Well, anyway, go on.
A high shelf.
A high shelf. Yes.
But
I always get confused by
what
those.
is really pertinent to note is, at least for me, was that in the new Godzilla, well, the 99 Godzilla, there was more of like a
higher frequency,
higher
as well.
than drops,
Yes.
so like a
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they managed to do that roar better. But what I wanted to bring up quickly was my favorite sound is from Godzilla, the King of Monsters.
Oof.
The Godzilla charging effect.
Amazing.
Where he's about to fight and he just goes like...
Yeah, it's like a proper, like
It's literally
build
like
up.
him ramping up before he gives out
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the big light burst or whatever.
It's, again, Skrillex watching that was like, this is about
I have
it.
an idea for a costume.
This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, but it's a huge... Yeah, essentially it's an EDM style drop.
And there's an EDM
What an
style.
amazing sound, right?
Yeah, great sound, especially because you can see the lights on his neck kind of like light up.
Like he's a
like
he's
a-
a phone in warp charge mode. It's just like
He's like a shoe in the 90s. It's amazing. And what I do enjoy
But I think
also,
it's important. Like it's a ridiculous sound. Let's be honest. It's
it's brilliant.
It's a crazy movie. It's a crazy sound. But that's what I think kind of telegraphs how sound effects can be really vital to a movie, because the sound effect ties in so perfectly with the kind of movie it is.
Can I also say that the sound effect ties in perfectly with the story of the film? Because in the movie, they try and attract the beasts or the monsters, and of course, one king of monsters, the monsters.
With the sounds.
With bioacoustics.
Yeah.
So the movie really is about sound.
Yeah.
And about drawing them out from using sound.
It's about the sound and the fury.
And it's all done using 2 XLR cables.
Give us your...
and a chaos pad.
Give us your most iconic sound.
I struggle to think about anything apart from like stuff in Star Wars, but of course there's so many to choose from.
So Star Wars straight away iconic. You've got, like you mentioned, the breathing.
I think,
Chewbacca's sounds as well.
I want to make a point about Darth Vader's breathing and why it always freaked me out. And I don't think I've ever spoken about it on this show, but like... Or that generally it's spoken about. But the thing about Darth Vader's respiratory system is that I always used to believe that that's how he breathes and then he speaks. But they both happen simultaneously, which is so weird because
he can't actually do that.
Yeah.
Because he has an artificial respiratory system.
He has an artificial respiratory system and his voice is using a voice box essentially, right? And that means his talking is completely unrelated to his breathing. And that's what makes it like kind of terrifying.
It's an unsettling effect.
Yeah, because he's speaking and you can still hear him breathe. And I think that's wild, man. And that kind of always freaks me out. Like, it used to, at least when I thought about it for a second. I was like, oh man, is it supposed to be like, no, I'm your father. He's like, no, I'm your That's how it does. That's how it happens. So I think that's definitely one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
The lightsaber is obviously one of my favorites. The whole... Yeah, I'm giving a stereo effect.
I think a rickshaw just came into the studio.
No, but dude, you know what's so awesome about that?
Though.
They made it using like an old TV transistor kind of thing, and then he just panned the mic basically across from that sound, so it was like
sounded
something like that. Which is so cool. So he did that, and he just did a bunch of crazy shit.
Great sounds in Star Wars throughout, including the new ones.
Yeah, the
new robots all have like distinct ways of speaking, which is so great. And they used like real actors, like they used Ben Schwartz and Bill Hader to create the sound of BB-8.
Well, they gave dialogue and sounds that kind of then Ben Burtt kind of morphed into a vocal sound. It was crazy. I like that. The other, and just to bring back to the original 1977, in Star Wars, there's a scene where Luke and Leia are trapped aboard the Death Star. And this is while they're trying to escape and Obi-Wan is trying to reduce, kind of put off the shield generators and everything like that. And they get caught in this little, very famous scene, right, where they swing across and all that jazz. And they're shooting at these stormtroopers who are slightly on a level above them. Yeah. And the first stormtrooper who drops and falls goes, ah, which is the Wilhelm scream. And that, after Ben Burtt did that, every movie kind of did it as an inside joke. It featured in all the Star Wars movies, it's in all the Lord of the Rings films. It's
in movies from this year.
Yeah, it's in movies from this year. It's in all the Star Wars movies. Yeah. It's in Reservoir Dogs. It's in everything, right?
The Wilhelm scream is...
Let's talk about the Wilhelm scream.
Screamed by a guy named... designed by a guy named Willem.
No.
Screamed by an unknown person.
No. It was originally in a I think a movie called Burnt Bridges or something like that.
Maybe.
And it was
like 1950s, right?
Yeah, very, very early on. Maybe even earlier. Maybe 1950. And then it wasn't taken very seriously. It was done by a musician, actually, a guy called Cheb Williams
Mozart.
or something like that. Okay. And so he did it, but it wasn't... it was used again because they didn't want to recreate sounds, so they just took that clip and put in a movie called, I think, The Charge of the Feather Bridge or something like that. And the guy so it's about like cowboys and Indians, and basically in that he gets shot by an arrow, and it's a private whose name is Private Wilhelm, and he gets shot by this arrow, and then when he falls off, he goes and then and so then they just called it the Wilhelm scream after that, and then it's just been used, and it was popularized after Star Wars did it because it was just like, whoa, this is so funny, and let's just use it again.
It is a very comical sound effect, but you'll find it in the most serious of movies.
Let's talk about that. Do you think it's still do you think they're still doing it? Does it take you out of the film now? Because it's so... it's still very old school?
It is very, very old school, but I think now sound designers do it just for kicks, and it's often very well disguised within the sound mix.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not like you just hear a guy in isolation going like... Wah!
Yeah, exactly. But you can't Can't you pick it out every time you hear it?
Well, our ears are tuned to that frequency. I would encourage our listeners to go listen
Check
to the
out
Wilhelm
the-
scream in isolation,
Yes.
and then see if you can unhear it. It's like a glass
impossible.
shattering thing.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just there. Like, I can think about it. It's in my brain,
Yeah.
like, so burnt into it. But, so I think the Wilhelm
But I
scream...
think if you don't know the scream already, you can easily not notice that it's in every single movie.
But here's my thing. I think the moment it's made clear to somebody that, oh, this is the Wilhelm scream, they'll be like, oh yeah, I've heard this a million times. I'm sure people can identify it. Like, it's one of those things that you can't unhear, like, as you said, yeah. So,
How I Met Your Mother, a sitcom from back in the day,
yes.
that I haven't seen in a long time, and I wonder how it's aged. Possibly
Not well,
very well.
not
right?
well at
yeah,
all.
Not a very good show.
Yeah.
In hindsight, but still,
I mean, the first 2 seasons were fine.
I think story-wise, it had a lot of issues, possibly, but yeah.
they
Comedic moments,
they got ahead of themselves. That's it.
possibly, but they still had some great comedic moments. So there's one particular episode that I forget the title of, but I think the title was something like Glass Shattering, where it was all about these relationships in which once you notice something about a person, you can't get over it.
Yeah, that's
So it's like, well, she chews really loud, and
Yeah.
you never think about it until someone points it out to you.
And then it's done.
So they did this really clever thing where there's a glass shattering sound effect whenever it happened, because it's like the glass shatters
Yeah,
and then you
exactly.
can see the truth.
Yeah.
So yeah, really well done. Another use of sound in story.
That's true.
That just occurred to me.
And it's good because it's done as a narrative tool more than just like as a SFX, as we call it. All right, cool. So that's good. Let's take a short break. We'll be back, talk about some more iconic SFX.
Welcome to Peak Planet, a new podcast where we delve into the fallouts of the growth path that we, and indeed much of the world, has chosen. Sustainable growth is the buzzword. Until we nail that down, we need to ensure that we keep our population healthy and also have the resources for our increasingly urban lifestyles. I'm Karthik Ganesan, a researcher at the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, a Delhi-based policy research institute where for almost a decade we've been trying to explain and change the use, reuse and misuse of our resources. In the first season of Peak Planet, we take up air pollution, public enemy number one and an invisible one at that. Increasingly, the most important risk factor for adverse health outcomes, air pollution has become the most unwanted byproduct for an aggressively growing economy. Over 4 episodes, we find out how prepared our systems are to deal with this crisis. You can catch the entire first season of Peak Planet out now on the IVM Podcasts app or website, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Hey, we're back. Give it to me. Give me one. Come on. Classic.
Yeah.
You know what's so weird?
Why is it a discount?
Yeah, you know that sound is very associated with Indian cinema now. You know?
It's weird. I'm like literally punching you in the face and you're not.
I'm just dodging it, dude. I'm dodging it. I'm Neo.
And I'm punching the wall behind you. Yes, but sorry, you were saying the sound in Indian cinema?
Isn't it like more? I find it more to be part of our Indian Bollywood old school lexicon. Dishum and Dishkyan.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right? That it's originated from westerns.
I have always been very curious about the way onomatopoeias are spelled.
Yeah.
Because I think they vary from culture to culture.
I mean, well, that's because of language, probably.
Yeah, but like you're hearing the same sound, and you wouldn't spell a punch as dishum in, say, Canada. But in India, you're like, oh, punch, huh? D-I-S-H-O-O-M.
No, so in Canada, they would not use the word because I think we've
They would
co-opted
use
it.
like what, a pow or a sock.
A sock or a
biff
bam or,
or
you
a
know,
bam.
Adam West classic
Which is not
Batman.
what it sounds like, by the way. It's a clear dishum.
Yeah, it's a... You know what's so funny? We were talking about Spider-Man in our Back to the Franchise episode a couple of weeks ago, and the fight scene with Bonesaw McGraw, I mentioned that because that movie was so comical, they kind of kept these classic SFX as opposed to something more realistic. Now, if you watch like Taken or any of these like Bourne Identity films, and there's like, or like fight sequences like a John Wick, it's very like low, thumpy kind of like sound. It's like basically hitting a piece of rubber,
and like
you know?
the sound of bones crunching.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like the realistic one is freaky.
Sometimes you don't even have to show any blood or gore, right? It's
you
just the
hear that,
sound,
like,
and it's when you know it's on. So you know, and so in that scene with Bonesaw McGraw, they kept all these old school like,
Yeah.
you know, like all of that kind of stuff, and I was just like, that works so well.
It works with the tone of that movie.
Narratively really well, and I think that's the best use of SFX, right? Like my favorite scene, I mean, like in Return of the Jedi, that moment when he's like, strike me down and, you know, whatever, take my place as blah blah blah. and he goes to strike the Emperor, and then, Darth Vader's like lightsaber immediately. Like, for me, that's like, it's seared into my brain when the lightsabers clash.
Yeah.
Because it's not happened, even like in the first movie when Obi-Wan and Darth Vader kind of fight, just that old, really crackly kind of sound, which I think they brought back with Kylo Ren's lightsaber. It's like slightly more like fiery and angsty. I think that shit is iconic, man. Like, the moment I hear lightsaber come on, I'm just like, game on,
Absolutely.
Like, it's really, really good.
Dinosaurs. Because we haven't gotten into the T-Rex hunt, but man, that T-Rex roar.
Iconic. Straight up iconic. There's
when
nothing like it.
dinosaurs rule the earth.
Jurassic Park, Jurassic World Dominion, the movie that is coming out that will, so to speak, end the Jurassic franchise.
Yes.
Do you think
the
it'll
Jurassic
happen?
World franchise?
In a sense, do you think it'll end this? No, they're trying to conclude it's the rise of Jurassic.
Oh my god!
Yeah, because everyone's back. Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum.
Well, they said Jeff Goldblum was back in the previous one, and look what that was.
Well, true, but they're all back in this. They're all going to be searching for Sam Neill on Ahto, and all of that. But yeah, so
they could close out this chapter and then just go like, all right, now it's time for a new Jurassic World.
Yeah, Jurassic Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
Jurassic Planet of the Dinosaurs. So they're going to close this one out. But let's talk about the T-Rex, the original film, Spielberg's T-Rex. That sound is apparently like a mix of like a baby elephant, a tiger, a dog, and a bunch of things. And how do they meld that together?
I don't know, because it sounds like such a seamless single roar, right?
Yeah.
But it's just so many things mixed in together.
Yeah. I was watching this one sound featurette on The Dark Knight Rises, and Richard King, who's a sound designer for most Nolan films, he was talking about making the sound for the bat, and he defined it into he did it in 5 adjectives.
Yeah.
He did like and I don't recall all of them, but he wanted to fuse the sound of like a turbine engine mixed with a helicopter, like a rotor, mixed with like a bomber, and like or like a jet.
Why not just record a bat?
All that.
Get a bat into the sound booth and go like, okay, bat, ready?
Fly.
And rolling, go.
He's like, I can't see, man.
The bat is constantly like, oh my god, you gotta turn the headphones down. You're killing me over here, man.
It's one of those things. Have you ever heard of that thing where, like old people are just like, turn down the stereo, I can't see I can't drive. But yeah, so they mixed a growl, a rotor, or a synth kind of like very low buzzsaw kind of thing. Mixed a bunch of things, and he shows it on Pro Tools, basically the fade in, fade out of those effects, and he kind of shows them layered, and boom, that's just the sound. And apparently there's this really nice thing about when they released the prologue of Rises before Mission Impossible, I think it was the 4th film. So I think it was Ghost Protocol, right? And they did the first, and apparently Bane's voice was vastly different because they were trying to do emulate all the sounds of these little pipes and things like that, and like nobody
could understand what they're saying.
Yeah, and then they finally just put a short reverb on it. And his accent.
It's like, I was born in darkness. Batman's like,
what? It's like,
come again.
Born in what?
What did he say?
Why does he sound like Scooby-Doo? But yeah, man. Actually, man, Christian Bale's voice, sound effect.
It is a sound effect, yeah.
I was watching the original auditions for Batman Begins, and it has this guy called Ian Bailey, I think, or one of the actors, Cillian Murphy as Batman, and Christian Bale, and the 3 of them are auditioning, and all of them are wearing the Val Kilmer suit, so not the George Clooney one,
right?
Val Kilmer suit, and they're doing it, and all of them have to do a couple of like scenes, but where were the other drugs going? And swear to me, right? And like Cillian Murphy's like, swear to me, okay? And like a whispery kind of thing.
Right.
Ian Bailey's like, swear to me. And Christian Bale is the only one who goes like, swear to me. And he's like,
they're like, well, I guess you have to do the role now.
Yeah, you got to do this now. So yeah, man, sometimes like it changed the fate of his life, essentially. Just like saying like, how can I approach the sound of Batman?
I guess
and then
so.
Boom, yeah. Crazy.
I will say, so I was obviously joking when I said, why didn't they just use the sound of a bat? I think sound effects are possibly the most subliminal way a movie can affect you in a lot of ways. Like, filmmakers have a lot of tools at their disposal to affect how you view things, right?
Yeah.
So, like, there's things like encoding color into your costumes, into your grade, and so on. Just the way things are shot. A lot of visual gimmicks.
Yes.
Sound and music are so key. Music, of course, we've talked about tons, but just the fact that instead of using normal bat sound, which when you watch it in a movie theater, you'll just go like, sure, that's a bat I've heard a million times before.
Yeah.
But you mix in like this low synth rumble, suddenly those bats become menacing. And
absolutely.
you don't even know why, because you don't listen to it and go like, whoa, that low frequency in that bat sound, but it hits you.
Man, I think there was a shower thought Instagram post where it was just like somebody just invented the sound of dinosaurs, which is now iconic to us, right? Like nobody knows what they sound like. We can take a reference of what
they possibly sound like.
Yeah, exactly. They were supposed to sound more like chickens. That's exactly what they said.
Because they are chickens. Big chickens.
Big chickens.
I mean, even
feathery
visually,
chickens.
Jurassic Park invented how you picture dinosaurs.
Pretty much, yeah. They kind of heavily like abridged the or basically kind of toned it into more menacing kind of things when they actually had feathers apparently and stuff. So yeah, man, like imagine that. Like our understanding of this very important part of the Earth's history has just been made by somebody in a audio studio. Like I love that.
Exactly.
I think that's so awesome.
I think it also ties into how when you create something completely new that doesn't really exist, you have to invent sounds for it, and those become iconic. Okay. Which is my way of bringing up the Wolverine snicked sound.
What a snicked sound.
That's not a real thing that there should be a sound for.
I think, it's a perfect onomatopoeic page to screen kind of translation.
Like, I mean, everyone knew that a Wolverine sound is a snicked.
Yes.
And then they nailed it in the movies.
Amazing.
And what I really like about the movies...
and just to parallel it, Thwip from Spider-Man.
Of course.
Classic. A classic Thwip.
What I enjoy about the Wolverine movies is... I remember thinking distinctly when watching, I forget which X-Men, but there are moments where the Wolverine claws don't come out like snicked, okay? They come out slowly, right? Like sometimes when he's threatening a guy, or in that scene where he's got like two of them out and then he brings the third one right up to that guy's neck. Yeah. You can hear the skin tear.
Yeah.
And you hear this like...
It's like basically like knives kind of like scraping against each other, like it's coming out like
so you can understand
shard.
when Wolverine talks about how they hurt like crazy.
That's so true.
You can feel it because
you can feel the skin tear.
You are hearing skin tear.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
And it'll be panned right and like in Dolby Atmos. Holy shit. No, it's awesome.
Do you think the three claws are panned like center, left and right?
Yeah, and right? No, man.
Yeah. Just so like his claw
if it's a close-up, why the hell not? So. Yeah, do it, man.
And it's a 3D movie, so it's coming right at you.
Now you know what the kind of my Wolverine movie will be like. It's just all about that sound effect. Man, I just want to say that I think super underrated, man, maybe, sound effects. Just like...
I think even thematically, another example I want to bring up before we like kind of close this out is video games.
So good.
Sound effects are so crucial to them because there's no real dialogue, or at least there wasn't back in the day. So like a Mario, everyone knows the sound of a power-up. Yeah. Everyone knows the sound of like... Exactly. And later used to like great effect by movies like Scott Pilgrim, right? Exactly. Like Scott Pilgrim's entire sound design is like heavily comic and video game. Yeah, so like, I mean, literally like power-up sounds when he vanquishes someone or like coins.
Picks up a coin, exactly. Very, very... And
so the fact that those sound effects became iconic enough to be referenced and used to convey the tone of a completely different medium is so cool.
Man, we have to do a video games episode now.
I guess we have to do a video game sounds episode.
Done. Let's do it. I do want to add now a last recommendation, which is Wolverine the podcast, man. You guys should check it out because it's all audio and it's all
sound.
Snicked. It's all snicked.
All snicked all the time.
All snicked all the time. Yeah. And actually, it's really interesting how they've tried to adapt like iconic like comic books, which are just by definition so visual and so like big and colorful into like a completely audio medium, and like see how they can adapt those very same kind of sequences into sound, and it's really well done, really well like very atmospheric, very immersive in the podcast. So check that out for sure.
One last thing, as we speak about video game sounds, occurs to me, we should also maybe do an entire episode on computer sound effects.
Oh my god.
Da-dung.
Or basically, what is Brian Eno's greatest work and contribution to our childhood?
I think more than any other sound effect, everyone knows those, right?
Yeah.
The dial-up modem sound.
The dial-up and the Windows startup, man, which he was given 100 adjectives to make, and he did it.
And how it's evolved over the years.
Yeah, it's
very
great.
Interesting.
Be nice. So good.
And the distinct like startup and shutdown sound effects.
And that's also the same way that Wall-E charges up is the Mac startup theme. Amazing. So good.
All right.
Good one. Let's end with the sound effect, shall we?
Yeah. I'm going to do the one where you like try to drag a file somewhere where it's not supposed to be.
Donk.
Oh, isn't it like a didunk?
It's
or
like
is it a donk?
Donk.
Dunk.
Yeah. And I was going to go with the shutdown theme, which is like dang, 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 dang. Oh, that's an Intel thing, I think.
Oh, is it?
It sounds similar, man.
Intel is ding, 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 ding.
Ding, 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 ding. It's 4 notes, right?
Oh.
And how many is Britannia? Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, ding, ding,
That's
ding, ding. 4 as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
Interesting.
Also, what has 4 corners? 1 note for each corner. All right.
Yeah.
This has been the Geek Fruit Podcast. Don't forget to catch us on social media, Geek Fruit HQ, and also write an email to us. Tell us which is your favorite sound effect and send it to us. Maybe some
You
underrated.
making the sound, ideally.
Yeah. You making one, and then what it actually sounds like, and then we'll compare. All right. See you later, you nerds.
How many times have you motivated yourself to improve your sleep, or lose weight, or be more productive? How many times have you failed? Hi, my name is Ashton Doctor. Tune into my show, The Habit Coach Podcast, where we focus on creating small, tiny habits to improve your life instead of those big, impossible tasks. So make listening to me a habit every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or on your favorite podcasting app.
Hi guys, this is Ayushi.
And I am Ritasha.
And welcome to Agla Station Adulthood.
It's a fun podcast we've got going on, and we'd love for you to tune in and enjoy with us.
Join us as we stop at various stations and discuss different topics that seem to be bothering us and hopefully
Dating,
you as well.
relationships, beauty, just being an adult, lots of different things.
We don't have a great grip on it, but we've done okay so far.
Catch Agla Station Adulthood every Thursday on the IVM app, the IVM website, or wherever else you get your podcast.